Hi guys, my name is Borodante, and welcome back to the blending paint in different apps. So I released the original video 1 week ago, and boy, the response was actually really cool. You guys wrote a lot of interesting comments. Mostly it was something like, oh my god, finally someone's talking about stuff like this. So that was really cool to have people actually caring about the same weird stuff that I do. But another thing that was really awesome was that some of the developers actually reacted to the video as well. Pablo Dobaro, the legendary developer for Blender apparently, he tweeted that he watched my video and actually implemented this kind of clean blending technique, the feature of choosing the radius of what colors will be blended with the brush into the texture painting in Blender. You can find the link to his tweet below. And another immediate response was from Lucky Clan, the developer of my beloved Artstudio Pro, one of my favorite apps on iPad, and they actually hired me to give them some feedback on the way the feature should be implemented. And also I developed the second Borodante brush that will come in the default brush set in Artstudio Pro with the next update. So that was really cool, and that makes Artstudio Pro the only app on iPad that actually has that feature. It only works for flat blending, so blur blending, as I mentioned before, since on iPad it's really important to use all the GPU accelerated features. It pretty much just uses the blending the whole layer and that's it. But the flat blending now actually lets you very easily work with the edges of objects, working just great. You can select the radius of blending from 1 pixel in the center to actually going 100% the way it was before. So that's really awesome. And I'll mention a couple more apps on desktop today as well that deserve an update from me after your guys' comments. You corrected me on several facts, but I think in terms of performance, Artstudio Pro is the fastest app that has that feature, so that's something, but of course it's only on iPad and Mac OS. The link to Artstudio is in the description as well. Now for the desktop painting apps, finally, we'll talk about Krita and Clip Studio Paint. These are the two apps that need more words said about them, especially Clip Studio Paint, since I haven't said anything about it in the previous video, and there was more to it than I thought before, so we'll go through that right after this word from today's sponsor. A new tutorial on Wingfox.com called Character Painting in Photoshop. This course will teach you how to make sure your character turns out awesome. The highly skilled teacher, going by the name Big Bird, not only has an incredible portfolio, but is apparently really good at sharing their knowledge. The course goes very deeply and specifically about applying gesture drawing and perspective when building your new character. I really like the idea of using certain references just for the main gesture of the character. All lessons follow a great pattern of practical demos, followed by detailed theory explanation right after. So you can watch the master work and then get a clear explanation with special examples. The course is available right now before its full release for a special price of $39, with a Black Friday 30% discount code. So if you're interested in character illustration, check out the affiliate link and the code in the description. And don't miss out on special Black Friday offers. Lucid, a fantasy character illustration tutorial with a 68% discount at $29, and Fantasy Concept Design and the Ways to Perform at only $9 with a special Black Friday code. Now back to the video. Alright, so Krita. As you can see, I actually opened a page from Outlandish Curiosity book that I'm working on forever in here because I'm actually very interested in continue working on the book in Krita. I want to try that. I have some issues with Krita still, but I spent like 2 days in a row playing around with the settings in it and with a brush engine and with performance settings, and I think I kind of figured it out. It's just not set up perfectly initially, but I think I made it working just right for my purposes. Anyway, the main correction that you guys gave me in the previous video was the fact that, yeah, Krita already has the blend radius, actually, that I completely ignored in the previous videos right here. It's called Smudge Radius. It has really weird numbers in here, and I think I missed it just because I was familiar with the engine of Krita forever, but I never thought of the fact that Smudge Radius actually means exactly the radius of what colors are picked up inside of the brush. So by the way, if you guys haven't seen the previous video or something, so if this is the brush, a circle or whatever, the spot of it, and it's a blending brush that actually blends colors like this into a flat color, it's about like how close to a different color's edge I need to be so it would start blending in. Because if it would be perfectly from all the pixels inside of the brush spot, that would be too much and that would mess up a lot of the edges when you're trying to work on them. So for instance, in here, if I want to blend between the green leaves of the forest and the sky, right now I can easily do that, and no brown color from the Gilbert suit right here will mess with the colors. And in here, if I want to add some, I don't know, for some reason it will be this purple violet color, and I'll be blending that into the brown. You see, no sky color ever blends in, making the whole thing brighter and paler. It doesn't happen because I don't go too far into the edge, but touching it a little bit doesn't affect the color. Because what Krita actually does is it doesn't pick up all of the colors inside of the brushstroke, it only picks up an area somewhat like this, I think. I'm not sure, that's the biggest problem. I figured out that I think 4000% is the number that works best, and I think it will work for all conditions, like for all brushes, except for maybe flat brushes, I'm not sure how exactly it works, but overall somewhat round brush, 4000 pixels works just right. I don't know where 4000% is coming from, what that number means, but it's what it is. So yeah, because of this, colors from here are picked up, and if the edge of a color is going on right in here, it won't influence the colors at all, keeping the edges clean, which is really important when you work in one layer, and not even in one layer, but you can have some details on the outfit of a character that would have their own edges. Even if you work in separate layers, it's still gonna happen. So it's important to have this feature, and in the previous video I thought it always had the 1 pixel setting in the middle, and that's it. So picking up literally 1 pixel from the center, but that was because my setting was a lot smaller over here. I just had it like this for some reason. But yeah, as it turns out, you can set up any radius, including radius much bigger than the size of the brush. So right now, if I get much bigger, it can go really big. And you see right now is like brown colors showing up in here, purple, because it's reaching there, like the radius is actually, I think, like this or something. So yeah, literally the same feature, the same setting for the brush now exists in Artstudio Pro and iPad, except for it's set up much more clearly. It just goes from 0% to 100%. So yeah, that's really awesome. I really love that. Another thing that I was really excited about is that I kind of figured out how to make the very poor selection of blending modes for the brush texture to work for me. Mostly it was in the form of using this neutral point and making it higher for the texture. That kind of gave me the result that I needed from the blending of the texture into the brush. So now it looks, I think, pretty satisfying. Oh no, I didn't make the setting right. There you go, that looks much better. So yeah, I think this is a really satisfying and working just right. So I'll give it a try to keep working on the Book of Outlandish Curiosity in Krita. So stay for the end of the video where I'll share some process of this page. This page is kind of far from being finished, obviously. But yeah, one problem I have with Krita is generally the performance, but it's kind of usable still. Like, I mean, this is a blending brush and at 600 pixels is pretty slow already. But like for really big brush strokes, first of all, you don't use that a lot. And for that, I can use not that much of a blending brush or a brush with really big steps or something. So you can kind of deal with that. And then when you go to 300 pixels, it's already pretty usable. Like, I would say it's close to perfect. And below that, it's just a perfect experience of painting. Also, there is always an option of pressing Shift L and turning on the instant preview mode, which will make the 600, 500 mode painting instant, and it's gonna change now. There you go. So that's the issue with it. It's kind of calculating things in a lower resolution and with lower precision, I think. And you can keep painting while it's still calculating the more precise version, but after you're done, it kind of changes a bit too much. And I'm not a huge fan of that, like especially if it would be not a blending brush but a dry, simple brush, I think there would be almost no difference from the instant preview and the final result. But with the blending, you can see how the difference is pretty big, like colors actually get very different, specifically in the areas where blending gets involved, like tones get different, and sometimes you may be like, painting around, picking up these wrong colors and keep painting on them, and then all of it will change, but the colors I picked up will still be those colors, the wrong ones. So the whole thing might really mess up a bit, I think. I'm a bit anxious about the way it would actually affect the workflow. But yeah, only for quick, big brush, messy start of a painting, it would be necessary. Outside of that, you can just turn it off and work instantly with reasonably sized brushes, so that's pretty cool. And it is amazing since Krita is a free open source project, so anyone can download it for free. The link to Krita is in the description as well. By the way, I think this is, I'm not sure if it's already released. I'm still in the pre-alpha of version 5.0. Should update that, but I don't think it will actually affect the performance. If it will, I'll let you know. But yeah, generally this is the way Krita was performing for me pretty much always. It just became much better, generally much more usable since I upgraded my CPU. So it supports this vector optimization thing that Krita actually uses, so that worked out really well. Now, moving on to Clip Studio Paint, a lot of you guys, so many people were asking me, what about Clip Studio Paint? What about Clip Studio Paint? Well, I spent quite a few time with it after the release of the video as well. I created this brush and it works really well. Like right now, it's a flat mode brush. For the subject of this and the previous video, no. Clip Studio Paint doesn't have the setting to choose like the radius of colors that are being picked up. So the moment I'm touching the red, it's starting affecting the color. It kind of becomes dirty, and in here you can see it also. We get some blue into the red, and you can't change that. So blending brushwork lacks that feature as well. But generally it's working really cool. And also what's great about Clip Studio Paint is that it has not just the blending mode, but running mode, as it's called. I think blending is more for like looking like a paint, and running is more like watercolor or something. So in this case, you get an option of using the blur blending that I mentioned in the previous video. So this thing actually doesn't create a flat resulting color, but actually blurs colors underneath. And you get stuff like gradients instead of flat colors, and getting it to a pretty big radius, it gets a really nice smooth transition from one side to another, looking really cool. But in this case also, unlike Paint Tool Sai version 2 that I was praising in the previous video, in here when you're getting close to another color, it gets immediately bleeded into your brush stroke, even though you're not touching it at all, because it actually uses the blurring the whole layer and then masking it. So that looks pretty messy. And in here I'm painting with red really close to the edge, and it gets a lot of white in it as well. So in that sense, Clip Studio Paint is not special, it's just using generic wet paint algorithms, I would say. Generally, I think Clip Studio Paint is more about a different type of artworks, right? Manga, comic books, and more of a clean and not so painterly artwork. Am I wrong? Because, I mean, all of this worked out pretty well right now, but then I'll increase the size of the canvas. Right now it was 1600 by 1200. It's a really small canvas. And if I would go for at least 4K by 3K, like not huge at all. I work on Black Widow in 8K, and like this size still works alright, although there's certain freezing going on when I make long strokes quickly. But when I use this reasonable size of the brush, it starts lagging a lot. Like it's really hard for it to do this whole thing. Using just flat blending is a bit faster, but still like in certain sizes. On this size, Paintstorm Studio or Artstudio Pro on iPad would work absolutely like 60 FPS. 120 FPS on iPad Pro, but in here there's like lagging going on pretty intensely, and blurring is really slow. Like, I'm not sure if it's using GPU even, since it's so slow. But yeah, I would say that Clip Studio Paint is really awesome until it comes to actually like wet brushes on big resolutions and stuff like that. That's my opinion, but you guys know I'm always wrong, so make sure to read the pinned comments down below, pinned comment. And generally, you guys let me know if I'm missing something, because I always do. But yeah, these are the updates for today. A huge pleasant surprise from Krita that actually has a setting to change the radius of the blending in colors, which is, I think, amazing. Artstudio Pro introducing the blender radius. Blender, the 3D app, now gets this kind of blending feature as well. And Clip Studio Paint will love Clip Studio Paint. Yeah, I just thought I needed to talk about it since it's such a popular demand to talk about the way it works. Maybe some of you guys who are dedicated fans of Clip Studio Paint could make a post in their forums to maybe ask for a feature like this. But yeah guys, for now this is it. Let me know what you think in the comments. From now on I'll be working on this page of Outlandish Curiosity and Krita, so you just watch, and for me it's bye! So I've been working in Krita on this page for several hours, and I have some notes to share with you guys. First of all, make sure you always run Krita as administrator, because without that, Krita seems to be unable to delete any created brush or remove it from any tag. It's really weird, you sort of can't erase anything because Krita is not allowed to delete files, I guess. But even with administrator mode, you still can't delete default brushes, so that was fun, spending like an hour choosing which brushes I like and which ones I want to delete, and then seeing how it all comes back when I restart Krita. Oh, and also for some reason you get a whole lot of these backup brushes cluttering your collection whenever you restart. Anyway, the brush collection thing is very messy. I don't know what's going on in there, but it definitely needs more work. And finally, about working with a color smudge engine with your brushes. First of all, with a smudge brush, never use opacity control. Opacity needs to be always 100%. And instead of opacity, you should use smudge length. Smudge length actually controls both the amount of paint and the amount of smudging. And it may be even the only mode that is capable of somewhat removing more blending than the amount of paint. Because pretty much every single other setting in the smudge brush always eats away its paint color, leaving a lot of pure blending, including even texture. If you turn off texture, you can get a very opaque brush stroke, but if you turn it on, immediately when you press slightly, it will be just blending without any paint in it. And speaking of textures, they desperately need more blending modes, starting with height. This page of the book ended up having a very soft brushwork, which is very different from previous pages, because I just couldn't achieve a sharper look with current texture blending modes. I can sort of make the texture eat away more of the brush, but the stroke itself still fades away a lot on its edges, and that can be fixed with different texture blending modes, like height for instance. But yeah, after all of that, knowing all the issues and all the weird behaviors, you can kind of work around them and have a pretty decent workflow, though I still feel kind of fatigued from fighting the constantly fading paint in the brush, especially when I start the stroke. Contrary to other apps where the amount of paint is added to the stroke with an easily adjustable consistency, in Krita, blending is present always, but adding paint to it is kind of like an addition. It's really hard to work with it. And yeah, on other aspects, the performance never actually bothered me at all. It was actually really fast because, well, in reality, especially since I didn't start this page from scratch in Krita, the performance was pretty good since the brush size is never that big after you have the base of the composition worked out. And aside from intense bugs in the brush library, I really liked a huge amount of customization in the interface. There are so many options of how to adjust the sizes and locations of your panels and bars, how to make things disappear quickly. You have a huge selection of different color pickers. It's very convenient and it can get very minimalistic if you want to. So that was a lot of fun discovering a lot of these somewhat hidden tweaks that you can make to Krita. So yeah, as the conclusion, I can say that Krita is like almost the best app, but it has a few of very annoying bugs or weirdnesses in its brush engine and brush library, like two of the main things in a painting app. But yeah, I'll try to keep working in Krita from now on. After all, the smudge radius thing is a huge advantage. So yeah, this is it. Thank you guys for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video.